Now, it's one thing for a military budget to increase for the coming year, but for every year through the next 2 decades, such is the case with Israel's military budget. Why does Israel need or to want to increase its military budget so dramatically? Is Israel preparing for something that the world is unaware of?
Israel says it plans to increase its military spending every year through the next 2 decades. Israeli officials say they look to spend up to 6% of Israel's GDP to build up the regime's military during the period. This would be the second highest military spending by GDP in the world among major economies.
This is just an astounding increase to announce that you're going to increase your defense spending so high over the next 2 decades. Israel always says everything it does is, quote, defensive, but it's virtually always actually offensive. It looks like Netanyahu is planning for more wars of aggression by Israel. There's one explanation that's a little more hopeful that some people have suggested. Maybe it's just an election ploy. One Israeli said, "Don't you get it?" It's almost Pavlovian in Israel. If you say security, voters think Bibi.
Israel has the largest military arsenal in the Middle East. Add to this Israel's nuclear arsenal that, as regional countries say, poses a serious threat to peace and stability in the Middle East and beyond. The U.S. is credited for helping Israel boost its military might. Washington gives Tel Aviv billions of dollars in military aid. It also gives Israel its most advanced weapons before selling them to other countries. The two sides also hold military drills each year.
It is a symbol of our commitment to the safety and security of Israel for our country, and it's an opportunity for our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines to build the relationship that's so vital to the interoperability and the integration of our capability.
U.S. officials have time and again reaffirmed their commitment to protecting the Israeli regime.
Now, it's called a Security Concept 2030. U.S. military assistance stands out when breaking down the Israeli military budget, $3.8 billion annually. Now, the new plan will even increase the U.S. share by $1.1 million per year. That brings Israel's annual military budget to nearly $5 billion, if you do the math. The Israeli Prime Minister tried to explain why this massive amount of military spending is necessary. He says Israel will always have security needs that are much greater than any others. But that's the second highest military spending by GDP on our planet.
Israel often accuses other countries in the region of being destabilizing forces. The regime has waged numerous wars since its creation in the wake of World War II. All those conflicts are notorious in the living memory of Middle Eastern peoples.
Israel always says everything it does is, quote, defensive, but it's virtually always actually offensive. It's the country that has the history of invading other countries, of initiating violence time after time after time. So clearly this is, very troubling for those of us that don't like violence and don't want increased warfare.
The wars that Israel has waged on Gaza have been fueled by Israel's use of heavy weaponry. Israel has been accused of using Gaza as a lab for experimentally new weapons. Israel's insistence on increasing its military spending and the size of its armed forces poses another danger: the threat of an arms race in the Middle East. The U.S. insists that Tel Aviv must have military edge on other countries in the Middle East. The U.S. pledged in 2016 to provide Israel $38 billion in military aid over 10 years.
This massive aid package to Israel, the largest in U.S. history, is not even being reported to the American public by the American media. I don't think this is a coincidence that Israel is announcing that it will have even more money in its military budget
That included $33 billion in foreign military financing funds and an unprecedented commitment of $5 billion to boost Israel's missile capability.